Welcome to our fun little study group for PP5361, Theory and Management of Public Service Organizations. This is a bonus section all about the generations, the years they cover, and their key characteristics. And wow, what a lively debate we had in class today on this. Gen Z was getting such a roasting. Okay, let's dive right into this.
You hear these phrases everywhere, don't you? They're all over social media, in the office, even across the family dinner table. But what do they actually mean? And you gotta wonder, why are we so obsessed with slapping these labels on everyone? It's time to figure out what's really going on.
So to really get a handle on these labels, we first have to understand the idea behind them. And here's a spoiler. It's about way more than just the year you were born. It's all about what was happening in the world when you were growing up.
Okay, so here's the formal textbook definition. The key phrases to zero in on are critical life events and historical moments. I mean, just think about it. The world looks completely different to someone whose childhood was defined by World War II versus someone whose was defined by the launch of the first iPhone, right?
And that is the absolute key idea. These aren't just random chunks of time. We're talking about cultural groups or cohorts that are shaped by history. These shared experiences kind of create a collective personality that influences our values, how we look at money, and even how we decide to raise our own kids.
All right, now that we've got the foundation laid, let's take a quick tour through the major generations that make up our world today. We're about to see how each one got its own unique flavor.
Here is the map for our little journey. Now look, the exact dates can get a little fuzzy, people love to debate them, but this gives us a really solid framework for understanding how everyone fits into the last century or so.
So let's start at the beginning, with the generations that literally built the modern world we live in. Their experiences were forged in some of the most challenging times in recent history. I mean, can you imagine being shaped by the Great Depression and World War II? It makes perfect sense that this generation learned early about scarcity, sacrifice, and just plain duty. Their values were all about hard work and community, because honestly, survival depended on it. They're the ones who built the suburbs, the institutions, the whole shebang.
And then, after the war, came this huge population explosion, and with it, a generation that was absolutely ready to challenge everything and change the world.
Born into a new era of prosperity, the Boomers were a massive and empowered group. You know, they really drove huge social change, from the civil rights movement to protesting the war. They were also the first to really start thinking about parenting from the kids' point of view, even doing things like holding family meetings.
Next up, we have the often overlooked generation, kind of sandwiched between two giants. People sometimes call them the middle child of generations.
With divorce rates on the rise and more moms heading into the workforce, a lot of Gen X kids became the original latchkey kids, coming home to an empty house. And that experience, it fostered this fierce independence and resourcefulness. They also saw the birth of the PC and MTV, making them this unique bridge between the analog past and the digital future.
And this slide just illustrates the shift perfectly. As a reaction to their own latchkey childhoods, many Gen Xers became super involved in their own kids' lives. They basically pioneered what we now call helicopter parenting. It was a direct response to how they grew up.
Okay, let's move on to the first generation to grow up with the internet kind of humming in the background of their formative years. Now, what's wild about this slide is just the sheer scale. Take a look at that number, over 74.2 million people in the US alone. Millennials just recently overtook the baby boomers as the biggest living adult generation. That gives them incredible economic and cultural power that is totally reshaping our world. This is a generation of transition, for sure. They actually remember dial-up internet, but now they live on social media. They also entered the workforce during a massive recession, and that has totally shaped their views on money. It's often why they tend to prioritize experiences over just owning stuff.
And that brings us to the first true digital natives, the generation that has literally never known a world without the internet right there in their pocket.
Growing up in this hyper-connected world and seeing the financial struggles that millennials went through, Gen Z is often really pragmatic and careful with money. They are incredibly politically engaged, fluent in all things digital, and have a strong desire for financial security and real, authentic social change.
But the timeline doesn't stop with Z. So let's take a quick peek at the generations that are just now beginning to write their own stories.
So you've got Gen Alpha, who grew up with iPads and Instagram from day one. But then, Generation Beta. They're going to be the first ones raised with fully integrated AI as just a normal part of life. Things like AI tutors and smart companions. It's kind of mind-blowing how fast technology is accelerating the differences between these groups.
So after that whirlwind tour, we finally land on the big question. Why should we care about any of this? Why do these labels actually matter in our everyday lives?
At the end of the day, these labels are a tool. They're a shorthand for understanding different perspectives that were shaped by different times. When we can finally get the why behind someone's behavior, we can move beyond stereotypes and actually have more empathetic and, effective conversations.
This quote really just hits the nail on the head. The goal isn't to cram people into boxes. The goal is to understand the context that shaped them. That's what lets us appreciate their unique strengths instead of just pointing fingers at the differences.
And that's the final thought I want to leave you with. As technology and huge global events keep reshaping our world at an incredible pace, are these generational identities going to become even more distinct, or will our shared future start to blur the lines between them? It's definitely something to think about.